Estolia's future sublime last resort promises to keep. The air to deities timeline, citizens happily sleep in the sureness and faith of the stray Aaron's control. The dagger, the temple, the preordained role of their future king.
One of the sentiments I heard frequently as our planet approached the tipping point was the idea that a rational person could not believe in divinity or deity. It was common to express the opinion that anyone who did believe was suspect as to their sanity, rationality, and intelligence. To them, the glorious intricacies of the world around them were the product of evolution and science, and deity had little or nothing at all to do with it. How could I, as a man of science, explain what I felt? That I saw the same things they did, but whereas they saw a lack of divinity, I saw an abundance. Abundant proof that our world is one of the finest pieces of art ever produced, and that we were all actors on some grand stage. As one of those peculiar individuals who would eventually call themselves adherents to two separate faiths, I could only watch the unfolding drama with a sense of smug righteousness. Benzan Aziari, Diary.
In shock, she watched the sports car driving away. Only when it was out of sight did she turn to evaluate her new situation. A swarthy man jumped out of the helicopter and gestured her close. Not sure what else she should do, she went to him. He gestured for her to climb into the aircraft and gave her a headset to put on. Once she was seated, he walked over to the possessions that Brittany had left in an untidy pile on the gravel. The first thing he picked up was one of her paintings. He stared at it intently, before looking through the rest of the stack. He glanced towards where she sat in the helicopter. With a shrug, he tucked the paintings under one arm and picked up her suitcases. Everything went in the space behind her seat. The pilot did not speak much English. He said several things to her, but his accent was thick. When she couldn't understand anything he said, he lapsed into silence. As the ground fell away beneath them, she wondered what would happen next. The entire confrontation with Joseph and Brittany had been so sudden and vitriolic, so incomprehensible, that she was still trying to process those nuances when Brittany dragged her here to this helicopter. If she had been thinking clearly, she would have asked to be taken to the police. Which was probably why Brittany didn't give her a chance to really ask any questions, and why she left her with this pilot who did not seem to speak English. She clearly loved her father, even if she was furious with him. She would not want Kadarin to go to the police. Would not want her father jailed. After about an hour they landed next to a sleek private jet. Once its rotors started to slow down, several young men approached the helicopter and, after a quick conversation with the pilot, pulled her belongings out and carried them to the jet. A woman came over to where she was still sitting in the helicopter and opened the door for her, gesturing for Kadarin to follow her. When they reached the mobile staircase leading into the airplane, Kadarin tried to find out what was going on.
"Where are you taking me?"
The woman did not seem to understand her question. Her command of English seemed even more lacking than the pilot of the helicopter. She gestured for Kadarin to ascend the airplane steps.
"What's going on?"
She tried a different question. Unfortunately, that seemed to puzzle the woman just as much as her other question. They were at a small, private, and seemingly abandoned airfield. There were only a few airplanes and no other people. Fleetingly she wondered if she had gone from one set of kidnappers to another. Sensing her reluctance to board without further information, the woman said to her,
"Mr. Zakarian, we take you to him. It is Una?"
Her eyes rolled upward, as if she was trying to find the correct word written on the inside of her skull. She looked again at Kadarin, and said with heavy emphasis,
"Una emergencia."
And then, in case she did not understand, the woman repeated in English,
"An emergency, please."
She looked distressed and frustrated by the language barrier. An emergency? Kadarin didn't know what to do. But if she had in fact been freed from the insane Joseph by Ezekiel Zakarian, she needed to thank him, at the very least, for rescuing her. She had come to accept that her destiny was outside her control over the previous 3 weeks. She hesitated before climbing the stairs. Once she was settled in the plush reclining seat, the airplane did not wait around. In next to no time they were climbing into the sky. When they reached cruising altitude, the flight attendant brought her a meal. Catherine ate hungrily. This was the first time since her kidnapping that she had an appetite. Several hours after she boarded the airplane, she felt a change in the engines. When she glanced out the window, she saw that it was very dark out, but that they were flying into an urban area ablaze with lights. Her pulse started to pound when she thought about how she would soon be with Ezekiel. When she reached to undo her seatbelt, the flight attendant reacted swiftly, saying,
No, this is Una, petrol, fuel stop only.
Once they were airborne again, Catherine tried to sum up her situation. But the only thing she was certain of was that they were now flying over an ocean, and she did not have a passport. Catherine did not sleep much on the long flight. She kept expecting to arrive at their destination. She was just drifting off to sleep when the gentle touch of one of the flight attendants on her shoulder woke her up.
We land,
she said. Catherine expected a certain level of disbelief followed by a hefty amount of concern that she had arrived in a foreign country without a passport. As soon as she got to the door of the jet, however, the flaw in her assumption became apparent. They were not at an airport. All she could see in the vicinity were a set of steps and a small horse-drawn carriage. At the bottom of the steps stood a man who resembled Ezekiel, only 20 or 30 years older. The most remarkable thing about him was that he was wearing the outfit she had painted on Ezekiel. The same colors, the same style. The only thing that was missing was the black sash. How could she have so skillfully painted this outfit from nothing but her imagination? She felt her skin prickle at the thought that forces beyond her control were somehow at work here.
My name is Theobaldo Reginald Zakarian, but please call me Theo. I am Zeke's uncle. My apologies that you were so unceremoniously pulled from your country and brought here.
He guided her towards the waiting carriage as he spoke.
I'm Catherine Cicero.
She introduced herself.
What?
She had to stop to yawn.
What's going on?
You are tired, my dear. In the morning, Zeke will be here and he will be able to explain everything. For tonight we will bring you to a lovely bedchamber, so you might have a good night of sleep. I was told you ate on the jet, so you will not need to sit through a long, tedious meal.
Catherine's eyes drifted closed during the carriage ride. When it jerked to a halt, her eyes opened. The carriage stood next to a grandiose entrance set into the side of a mountain. As Theo escorted her towards the doors, he explained.
This building is semi-subterranean.
He led her through a spacious foyer, a large empty hall of sorts, through a second larger foyer, and through a set of double doors. When he came to a halt, she looked around the spacious suite curiously. It was quite lovely, she thought, though she could barely keep her eyes open long enough to take in any of the details.
You will remain here until the morning. After you wake up, you will be escorted to where you need to be,
Theo explained. He spent a few minutes showing her around the suite. To one side was a small kitchenette with a miniature refrigerator. In the opposite direction was a bedroom. One entire wall was solid glass facing out into a small garden courtyard. A thick elaborate tapestry held up by a gold and purple braided rope separated the two rooms. Inside the bedroom, a king-sized bed took up most of the space. A small chest at the foot of the bed and a couple of small bedside tables were the only other furniture. On the far side of the bed was a door leading to a bathroom. Theo went to one of the night tables and turned on the lamp. Next, he untied the rope holding up the tapestry, and it swooshed down to separate the bedroom from the small sitting room. He moved over to another tapestry tied up so the garden courtyard could be easily viewed, and that too swung down, throwing the room into semi-darkness. He opened the chest at the foot of the bed, rummaging through it and extracting a garment in white satin.
Here is a nightgown, Catherine. Is there anything else I can get for you?
Sleep was all she really wanted.
No, thank you.
She hesitated before asking.
I will learn more tomorrow?
Absolutely, my dear.
He left the bedroom, and she heard him leaving the suite. Catherine was exhausted, both from the long journey, as well as the 20 days she had been held hostage. The emotional turmoil, the confusion, The insecurity had all taken a toll on her. She could only hope everything would be cleared up in the morning.
In the sureness and faith of the stray Yaren's control, the dagger, the temple, the preordained role of their future king.